Welcome to another episode of Daring to Transcend. I am super excited to have my guest here today from Singapore. So we're branching out of the US today and going global, although I believe her background is in the US. So we'll hear more about that. But I am really excited to introduce Lindsay Davis, who is the founder of 1B Consulting. And I can't wait to have a conversation with her. Welcome, Lindsay Davis, to the Daring to Transcend podcast. I am so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm happy to be joining you from sunny Singapore as the sun is coming up right now with you, as I think probably the sun is setting where you are.
It's already gone.
Fantastic.
So we lost our sun about an hour ago, but it's all good. What I would love to hear from you today is, I'm not going to read your bio because I'm going to let you tell a little bit about your story, your background, and how the heck you ended up in Singapore, because I don't think that's where you're from.
You're correct. I am not. I'm not originally. And actually, this is the American accent. So we definitely have that in common. So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I think what you're doing is great, really bringing women, awareness of all of the different life journeys and options we have, and not necessarily just going that standard corporate route, rather really pursuing what brings us interest and passion, curiosity, all of these things. So I really applaud you for taking the time to, help women find, their power or empower women by, being on this journey and really, exploring what they want. So I really love your mission and what you're doing. I'm originally from Wisconsin, so I'm from right outside of Milwaukee. I think over the years, I've probably lost a lot of my accent, though it does come out sometimes. I went to school in Texas, so went to the University of Texas, did some work in Dallas, and did some work in Florida for an internship with the Disney company, did an internship in Spain with the UN, which was very exciting, and also really where I kind of thought, okay, I think Europe could be a really amazing place to live. After moving back to the US, I thought in my head, I will end up back in Europe. And so pursued advertising as a first career step, always working in multicultural advertising in the US, which I absolutely loved. After a few years there, found a job actually in London as an easy transition point based on the language. So kind of had my first step, or I guess that would be second step at that point, in international living by relocating to London, where I lived for about 13 and a half years, became British in 2014 as well. So have dual citizenship now, which is really great. Unfortunately, with Brexit, it isn't as, as helpful across. But still feel really fortunate to be able to kind of live and have the option to live in multiple places. I ended up moving to Singapore about 4 years ago when I left my kind of more corporate role, I guess you could say, not at a big corporate, at a small, medium company, and started just a whole new career path. So we had been hit by COVID in March of 2020, really, with the lockdowns, and I moved to Singapore in January of 2020. So I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but consulting seemed a good way to, pull my background in, which was obviously a lot of advertising work. I also worked in the luxury space for many years, so kind of focused on that sector and had some really brilliant clients. One of my jobs that I had, or one of my projects, was working with conference, and I was their conference host for the Singapore stage. So I actually did all of their moderating from here. And actually, I met a wonderful photographer and social media expert who was telling me, I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And she said, "I'm in femtech." And I said, "Oh, women in tech. I love that." She said, "No, women's health and technology." So female technology, women's health and technology. And I thought that's brilliant, because what are the two things women need more than anything, as important, are women's health and women's wealth. So those are two things we need to kind of, build that gender equity and make sure that our opportunities are as strong as, our friends of other genders. So we want to make sure that, we have these opportunities. And so I thought, okay, well, this is really where I feel I could pour my energy into something that we just hadn't seen in Asia yet. So I launched Femtech Association Asia in October of 2021. And since then, we've made some great progress, really normalizing the conversation around, menstrual care, menopause, fertility, et cetera. So really, helping startups and founders create opportunities to amplify their products and services, to connect with a broader ecosystem of investors, entrepreneurs, different leaders in the space. And then, obviously we have programming and run events. And so it's really about creating this industry body and association across Asia, which now we're in 9 countries across Asia. And it's really helping create this industry that really wasn't cohesive until, we launched the association. So really, really excited to see this journey go from kind of more comms to luxury and now moving into women's health and technology space.
Yeah, that's a big transition from different industries, although it sounds like you're using a lot of the same skill sets across those. So, you talked about getting into sort of advertising and marketing. Was that your dream when you were a kid? What was your dream? How did you end up in that space?
It's a great question. So I majored in Spanish language and literature and government or political science. And so I think my initial thought was, I want to be involved in some sort of international career. I want to meet people from around the world, from different cultures. I want to travel. I want to, work in different countries. I want to feel a part of many different people's lives and really learn from many different people. And so the job in advertising was actually more of the fact that it was a lot of Spanish language. It was a lot of looking at our Latinx community in the US and how, and it was, this was many, many years ago. I probably shouldn't say the date as I age myself, but I am proud of how old I am, but it's more, just thinking of a different time and place. And it was just really such an amazing time with one of the most amazing groups of people. I worked for a company called Dieste Harmel and Partners at the time, which I think is now just Dieste. But it was really one of, the most impactful career moves in that, I was meeting people from all around the world at this amazing, amazing place. And in university, I did a bit, but I was a rower. So I spent a lot of my time exercising with the same wonderful teammates, on the water and off the water on the erg. But I think, Dieste was so impactful in that one, of course, did some fun work. Advertising is fun, got to do some travel and, experience some exciting and learn a lot, experience some exciting things. But it was more the people that were so incredible. And to this day, some of my favorite colleagues I ever have had are from that job. Some of the smartest, brightest, most creative people I've ever met with such, such drive and such, international awareness. And I always just felt really comfortable there. It was a beautiful corporate culture. So I started in that space. So advertising, I don't know if it was a dream, but my dream was definitely to move beyond, my smaller world in Milwaukee, which I also loved. I had a great childhood, a great family, but I just felt like there's this huge world out there and there's so much more I want to see. So step one was kind of finding, people who were different than me in the US and really getting to know other cultures. And then step two obviously was, okay, now there's an even bigger world outside the US and pursuing that. So I feel really fortunate that I've been able to meet so many amazing people from around the world.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you took the dream, like, I will confess that I actually, of course, I took a lot of French when I was in school. And I had this dream of going into international relations and doing all of that stuff at one point too, which is really funny now looking back on it. But that was really important to me at the time. I got to college though, and I hated taking French in college.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for whatever reason, it was just not a great experience for me. So I kind of dropped it and, went off and became an English major, which I also love. Obviously now being a writer, I've finally fulfilled that dream of writing a book.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's so funny how I love how you've taken that dream and morphed it into something that's just been really spectacular as far as not only your just career, but your ability to travel and live in different places and do things. So I love that you were able to do that. So I'm going to ask the hard question now. What does it cost you to do all that? What have you given up along the way or not been able to do?
That's a great question. And I've moved around quite a bit. So I would say, the hardest part is rebuilding community time and time again. But it's a funny one because it's kind of it's the blessing and the curse thing where it's really hard to restart a career, rebuild a network, find a whole new group of friends. And, we talked about community before this podcast, together. And I think that is probably the biggest challenge, but it's also something that has given me such joy. And I think also probably a lot of resilience is continuously meeting amazing people. And I don't know if I think probably I'm just really lucky. I've found that it's always worked out. And I think, again, I kind of just believe things work out one way or another. They just work out in whatever way it is. But I feel like that is probably the biggest thing is, I see maybe, people from high school who still have really tight-knit group of friends, whereas I just kind of have one or two friends from high school, or really tight-knit groups from when I lived in, Madrid for a year. And I just look at they're all still such good friends. And I kind of just keep in touch with one person or two people. But the other side of it is, as I keep moving around the world, my network, I just keep getting to meet new people and making more friends and new friends. So I think community, both from a career perspective of being a community builder, is something I think that's always been kind of the number one thing I've done, or has been consistent with, the line through my career. But more than that, I think it's also, getting to, expand my community. And again, I think it is a matter of the more I learn, the less I know, the less I know. So it really is like, I feel really lucky that, I can look back and say, oh, I can't believe I thought that, or I said that, or I did that. But I also am so fortunate that I'm learning so much along the way that I can course correct and I can become a better person and I can try harder and hopefully keep working through my mistakes and meeting new people and learning new things. And so I think community is probably the biggest thing I've given up, is having that consistent, solid group of people who've been with me side by side on the whole journey versus people I sometimes only get to see once every 3 years or once every 5 years or once a year. And that can be a bit harder. My family's based in the US, so I don't get to see them as often as I'd love.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, as we talked earlier before we started recording this, I've lived in New Jersey almost all my life, which was never the plan, right? I would have loved to have had some experiences living abroad, whatever, but that's just not the direction my life took. And I'm good with it. What I've learned is I've been able to find community in different places along the way. And I'm not necessarily, even though I live an hour away from where I grew up, I'm not necessarily very connected with people that I went to high school. There's a couple people from high school and there's a couple people from elementary school that I keep in touch with, but it's probably not any more than you. It's probably not any more than you do. And I don't live that far away. But what I love, and I particularly obviously love about the environment we're in now is, I can meet people all over the world. I have friends, from all over the world. And I love that because I love getting the different perspectives. To your point, it allows you to bring a different attitude towards just learning and saying, okay, this is the way I'm thinking today, but I'm not necessarily going to think that way tomorrow because I'm going to learn something new that is probably going to influence that one way or another. And you stay open-minded to see the possibilities, right? I that's what I hear in you and hear what you're saying is that you're always able to stay open and see the possibilities in whatever the situations you are, which is just so important.
I think I think you're definitely spot on. And I don't think we need to live internationally to be open to new ideas. I heard what was the quote I heard the other day, that opportunities pass, they don't pause. So it's the whole idea of, actually keeping an eye open for things as they're coming through. And I think, definitely I've had times where I've been a bit more kind of shut down and a bit more maybe less open to ideas. And I find that, my happiest times are typically when I'm letting the world happen a bit more. Even when you asked the question earlier about maybe a bit more around planning or how did you make it happen? And I think, this is also a voice of privilege, right? Saying that I didn't have to think too much. It just kind of happened. Well, that comes because, I was able to have a college education and I was able to meet great people and I was able to have a job that I made money. So lucky me. This is starting higher up on the ladder and I understand that. So recognizing the privilege I have to start. But also, I think, adding on to that, the openness of saying, I want to learn more and be a part of more. And I think letting, being open to things that maybe we don't plan can be really helpful as well. I mean, the example is femtech. I do a lot of work in femtech now, and I've met so many people. I mean, I had no idea. If you had asked me 5 years ago when I was talking about, Louis Vuitton and Gucci, et cetera, in the luxury space and, Six Senses and whatnot, these big brands. And now I'm talking about, organic menstrual care brands and medical devices and computer imaging for breast cancer diagnostics, so it's a whole different, it's a whole different world of information that I'm learning, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it just shows that we don't have to commit kind of to that one passion or interest or career path. It's that we can kind of, there's just so much more to learn. And I think for me, that stimulation of learning is really important. And that is something I can find myself along with community building, is that stimulation, constantly wanting to learn more and better myself. And again, course correct any ideas or preconceived notions or biases I have, and really try to work through that. Again, just constantly trying to be better and learn more. And I think women's health has really resonated because, women's health has been kind of under-researched, underfunded, underserved historically, which, so many of us know. I've had experiences where, I personally have been at a doctor in the past and expressed my concern, and they said, no, it's fine, it's normal. And it's just, well, that's, dismissive. So but then I've met other doctors who are super engaged and they sit with me and talk for hours. So it's those two very different experiences. And also, what are the solutions through technology? I mean, we look at AI-powered solutions, providing more personalized, care or personalized treatment plans, or being able to help, find efficiencies in the healthcare system through, supporting, again, I mentioned computer imaging earlier and helping radiologists. I don't know, it's just all of these different things that are out there that we can do. And then I also love the idea that a lot of it's around founders. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place right now, but I just get really excited talking about this. But in the Femtech Association that I started, we're 80% female founders. So how exciting is that to be part of an industry that women are not only the end consumer, but are actually the leaders in the industry and actually building the industry. And I think that's super exciting and really fun to be a part of.
Absolutely. No, that's really wonderful. And, what you said about, your experiences with healthcare just so resonates with me because, in my life, and even recently, I've had the spectrum of going to the doctor that, I remember going to a doctor years ago who completely dismissed, PMS symptoms and just said, oh, that's just something you gals crave, salt and potato chips during that time. And if you don't eat them, you'll be fine. And it's just like, I don't even eat them. Do you hear what you're saying? Obviously, I never went back to him. But it's really interesting how we can get treated as a doctor's office as a person, a human being, where the doctor sits down and talks to you and gets to know you, or you're treated like, okay, here's another body in front of me and here's the checklist I need to go through. And there's just the checklist. And to your point, the checklist is often a checklist that was developed for men, right? It's not necessarily a checklist that's appropriate for women, or maybe, there's the slight modifications. So, my father was a doctor and my mom was a nurse. So I grew up with very, traditional healthcare things. But as I've, grown and learned and explored, it's really interesting to me, particularly, the whole mind-body connections that we're getting now and the whole holistic look at, not only our health, but our lives. Like one of the things that I love to talk about and I work with my clients is, integrate the whole self. And that really applies not only to our health, but, which is obviously where you are, that whole integration of everything, but it really applies to every area of our lives. And so many times women get pulled away from that, particularly when they're in corporate, right? Because you get into that narrow, this is the path, this is the ladder that you're going up, this is the box that you belong in, and you're going to stay in. I was really lucky not to be put into a box when I was in corporate. I was so fortunate to be able to explore and do different things in the same company, which is why I stayed with the same company for a while, because if it wasn't, I never would have stayed. I hadn't had that stimulation. But I think there's there's things that women suffer from, and it impacts their health, which is the stress of not having the community and the inability to really step out of sort of the narrow lanes that we get in our lives. When learning and growing and exploring is such a big part of who we are as people.
I absolutely agree. I mean, there's, I was just sitting here thinking about what you were talking about. And the first thing is that comes to mind is like, shared experiences. We both had experiences with wonderful doctors, which I'm so glad about. We've also had experiences with maybe not great fits for us. And I think a big part of what we're seeing now, which is really exciting, is greater consumer education on our own bodies as women, so that we can actually go to the doctor and say, no, this isn't normal, or this isn't average, or this, I'm aware that this could be something else. So part of it is just, I think, even having the awareness and education, or knowing that like, you don't just have to live with it, like potato chips, like that's not a solution, thank you so much. That's not a solution. So it's delicious, love a salt and vinegar chip, but it's the whole idea of, with that consumer education comes empowerment, comes demand, and saying this isn't good enough. And I think women are starting to have that voice, which is really exciting, and saying we want more, and we want to be listened to, and we want more research and more solutions that suit us, and we want to not just be treated like little men. We want to have our own courses of treatment. And I think the other thing is looking at, again, what you just said, and I love what you said about like integrating the whole life. The idea that what is wellness? I think the term wellness used to be like eat right, exercise. And now it's so much more than that. It's, it's eat right. It is exercise, of course, but it's also, take care of your mental health. It's make sure you have safe spaces at work. Make sure that you have financial stability. Make sure that your home life is, and your relationships are solid. So I think wellness is just such a broader term now. And I think that, I feel really lucky. I always laugh, with my, Gen Z and my millennial friends. I'm like, I'm so grateful for you guys. You've made the change for us, that we can, really be aware of these things and have them as part of the conversation. So, I think overall wellness, again, back to women's wealth and women's health, if those two things we can get in place, I think we're going to be in a really, a great future, for women. And a lot of that's going to start with education and opportunities for women. And that's really what I hope to do with the Femtech Association, is, again, support founders on their journeys, especially women founders, but certainly not excluding men, from helping, with women's health either. And just, when I say women, I'm being inclusive of, everyone with women's healthcare needs. And so, it's exciting to just think about a future where we're a lot more inclusive.
Yeah. And, to your point, men are always part of the solution. I mean, we're partners in this whole thing. Yeah. We can't ignore them. And it's funny. I resisted for a long time, but I just recently watched the Barbie movie, because I was like, I don't want to watch this. It's going to be stupid. And there were parts of it that were pretty stupid, especially the ending, but at least in my opinion. But the message, I loved the way they brought around the message that it wasn't just about women's rights and women's needs, but that it was a partnership, and they needed to work together, and they needed, and needed to be as fulfilled and as important as Barbie was, which, I really love the way they brought that partnership into the conversation, because it's so important. And when we talk about women's empowerment, often I know men feel like, I'm being left out, and I'm being put down, and I'm being put out of it. But it's really not. It's really, by empowering women, we're empowering everyone.
Again, I think it comes back to that inclusivity. And I love what you're saying, that, women's health really is everyone's health. It's societal health. And so, healthier families, healthier workplaces, this is literally the result of having healthier women. For countries, it's, better economies, because more women can contribute to the economy. So it's all in all, it's a better thing. And I really like what you said there about inclusivity. And it's how are we making sure that, we're bringing everyone on this journey. Yesterday, one of our members sent me this awesome event he's having, and it's a menopause education event, but it's exclusive. It's only for men. It's so men can come and learn about menopause in a safe space with other men and ask all the questions they want to ask. And he's a professor and a clinician and a doctor. And I just really was like, that's amazing. Like you're creating a space where people can feel like, they don't have to ask a stupid question, which again, no one should ever feel shamed. We only know what we know. We do the best we can. So it's how can we help people learn, right? And so I just loved that he sent this and he said, oh yeah, this is so that people can better learn how to respond to their wives, their partners, their loved ones, their daughters, And so he's like, so I want to start that, space for men to learn about menopause. And I thought that's brilliant.
I love that. I really love that. Because by learning and understanding, and I love what you said about there's no stupid questions.
No,
because we don't know, and the fact that we actually ask the question shows that we're not stupid, because the stupid people are the ones that don't ask the questions, that just continue along either in ignorance because they're, just because they're don't want to ask the question, or out of, fear of not being able to express themselves and not be able to ask the question. And, we need to be able to have conversations, and I love that you're empowering those conversations in that marketplace, which, those conversations all are, they're not always had in the US or Europe, but they're particularly in some of the Asian cultures, not, even less so. So to bring that out in that environment is just incredible. So I really applaud you for that.
Yeah, we have a really brilliant ecosystem. And I think seeing our founders and the voices they have, there's a company called Ira Concept in Thailand, and she's really being a voice for menstrual care. And there's another similarly doing the same type of work called Luna in Hong Kong. And, you see these women really putting it on LinkedIn, putting it on Instagram, really putting it to the market, working with corporate companies and actually bringing solutions for care for women at work. And I think that's really exciting. And I think so much of it is about, to your point, normalizing the conversation, giving women the education, the awareness, and the tools to ask the questions or to even be aware. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So how would we even know to ask a question if we don't know? So there's so many amazing entrepreneurs over here who are really working to bring femtech. And I think the good thing about femtech too is that, and what makes it maybe a bit easier to discuss is that it's the business of women's health, which makes it easier than just going straight to kind of the consumer side,
right.
Description of, it's actually saying like, here are solutions that are, that you can invest in that, are tech solutions, for women's health. So I think coming at it from a business angle has been really positive as well, because I think it does make it a bit more like, oh, I'm talking about this as an investor, or I'm talking about this as a business opportunity. So I think that takes away a little bit of that, maybe the stigma or the taboo, because it's no, this is a business opportunity and this is going to be the future of healthcare. Half of our population as a target, pretty big. So, I think that's really exciting too, is that we've seen a lot of, open arms from different companies. We have had some great support from Bayer over here, and they've supported us on some of the research work we've done. And My Republic, which is a big telco company over here. We have AWS has been a strong partner for us over here. They're actually going to be our venue sponsor this summer in June. We're hosting what we're calling Femtech Connect Asia, which is basically kind of the first, women's health and technology roundtable event or femtech event that's bringing together people from across Asia to talk about the industry that we're in, the women's health and technology or femtech industry, and meeting the founders and the investors, government officials coming. So it's really exciting to have this breadth of delegates who are all coming together to talk about this. So we're really grateful to AWS for saying, come in, use our space for free. We believe that the work you're doing needs to be supported, especially now where it feels it's in such a nascent stage. But certainly not niche.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. I love that. Well, congratulations on that. That sounds really
Thanks. Yeah, sure. It's a lot of work. There's no such thing as too many projects, as I'm sure with your third book coming out in the next year, I think you'll understand that.
Yeah. And so I'm going to throw at you 3 words, and I'd love to hear how you think those 3 words might impact, what's next for you. I know you're sort of relatively new in the femtech thing, and you're probably may not be thinking about future, but how would these impact? So the three words are freedom, voice, and I hate to use the word balance, but what's coming to mind is balance. Because I know you talked about, your downtime is catching up on your email sometimes. So, and we're talking about women's health, and, I know work-life balance is a myth, but, we're talking about the integration. So we'll just go with that.
Yeah, I think, with that comes a quote from my mother that I always loved, which was, she'd say, "Do as I say, not as I do." In other words,
that was my favorite quote.
Exactly. And it also reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is in Alice in Wonderland. And sorry, this isn't the exact quote, but it's, "I give myself very good advice, but I seldom follow it." So I think so often, and I talk about this with a lot of our founders. And so maybe I'll start with balance, since we're touching on that now. But, I think so many of our founders, they work so hard. Entrepreneurs work so hard. These founders starting these businesses in this space that just doesn't have the volume of support of a fintech or an agritech or, sustech, any of these. I mean, these founders are working so hard. So there really needs to be like a whole nother level of self-care and mental and mental wellness and mental health care that we need to make sure that we ourselves are abiding by and following our own rules. The reality is, with entrepreneurship, you can work 24/7, or one can work 24/7 and not stop, because each hour is opportunity cost for something else that you could be doing, right? So it's really saying, but also there's a time where I always say, like, "Oh, I have downtime, I'm going to go for a run, and I'm going to, I'm going to go run errands." But it's like, is that self-care? Is going for a run self-care? Or is that taking care of yourself just so you have a healthy heart and healthy lungs, or whatever that might be? But actually taking some downtime and actually pausing, quiet space, which is why I love my dog walks in the morning, is I can actually, I don't listen to the podcasts the first kind of 15, 20 minutes, and I just let my brain rest. So I think it's these little steps. So when I think about balance, I think it's, really looking at, of course, self-care. And more of that is around like self-awareness and knowing when we are close to the point where it's getting too stressful or it's getting to be too much work, and taking a pause. Because the reality is, whilst I'm supporting those who are helping, cure cancer, I'm certainly not the one doing it. I wish I was that smart that I could do it. So, the whole idea is, I want to make sure that I'm giving the space for what I'm good at, which is, raising the profile of the industry, raising the profile of our companies and our founders, building programming that they can connect and network, and having a community of industry leaders that they can lean upon for support. And that's my role in this much broader women's health movement. And so I need to focus on fulfilling that to the best of my ability, and not diluting that by having a brain that's too scattered from doing too many things. So when I think of balance, that's what I think of the future. When I think of freedom, what a lucky person I am, because when I think about what success means, I think, it's changed over the years. And I guess as I'm aging, one thing that I do think about with success is I do see freedom, and I'll translate that to independence. So being able to do what I want, how I want, within the role of integrity, or the reflection of integrity, but to be able to do what I want, and that freedom of independence, and that freedom of choice, I think is really important. And I think that choice is how we as women, choose to treat whatever, illness, ailment, condition, whatever we have. I think that is success, is being able to make those choices. And I say that from a societal perspective, that women should have the choice in all things they do. And I think that is what freedom, so that's what I am trying to do, is create available, accessible, and affordable healthcare for all women, so they can have the freedom to make their own choices, because they have the knowledge, the funds, the access to what they need, and then they can make that choice because they have the freedom to do so. So I see freedom for myself in again, going back to the word privilege. I'm very privileged that I have the freedom to spend my time doing what I want to do. And then in turn, I want to create those freedoms or those choices for more women in the healthcare space, which I think technology really affords that cost and access and availability. And then, oh, sorry, the last word is voice. Well, clearly you can tell I'm a nightmare at karaoke because you give me the microphone and I will never get it back. So I would say if anyone knows me well, and when you come visit me in Singapore, Karen, when we go for karaoke, you might as well just not. So it's me and the microphone.
I can talk. I will grab that microphone from you because I love to do karaoke too. So we'll do it. I can't wait. I'm coming.
There you go. Perfectly compatible then. I'm excited about that. So voice is really, again, I think it is what we're doing right now. I think it's amplifying the things that we believe in. It's, finding a voice to make change. It's taking our voice and talking about things that other people might not be comfortable talking about that are important. It's using our voice to create a space so someone else can have a voice at the table who might not have that confidence or that comfort to make sure that they have a space. So I don't think voice necessarily means my voice, but providing the space for other people to share their voice. And that's really what I'm trying to do again with Femtech over here is give more founders opportunities to speak, whether it's at our conference, Femtech Connect Asia in June, whether it's opportunities with other partners to have speaking engagements or to talk to the media. That's really what I'm trying to do and hopefully connect people to build kind of a stronger one voice together for the Femtech industry and women's health and make it, an everyday topic that everyone wants to talk about. So yeah, that's really what I think about with voice. So jumped around a bit, but I really believe passionately in what we're doing. And if anyone wants to connect about women's health and technology, Femtech in Asia would love to talk. And just, I guess, a huge thank you to you for giving me this platform to talk with you today. And, excited to hopefully connect with some of your listeners and stay in touch with you. I mean, we've got some serious karaoke to do. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
The future.
Absolutely. Me too. I love it. And we will definitely put, I know we get your social media links and the way to contact you will be in the show notes. So I'm, excited to share those. And for people in Asia, if they're in the femtech industry, but, please connect with Lindsay and, be part of this because I think she's doing some amazing work and we're really happy about it. And if you want to learn more about integrating your whole self and taking care of your mental health and really putting yourself in a position so that you can use your voice, check out the Daring to Transcend website because I've got some great stuff out there, some blogs, some supportive things, and you can learn more about what I'm doing. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining me today. I loved it. And looking forward to staying in touch and seeing you again soon. Take care.
Thank you, Karen. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.